Hi everyone, so today we are going to be working on Unit 1 Lesson 12, and the learning target is I can find missing angle measurements when parallel lines are cut by a transversal by creating equations using expressions. So we're going to, as we've seen before, solve for missing angles, but now we're going to use expressions and solve for a variable that will then help us solve for that angle measurement. But first, let's just start with the do now. And we're going to just start with A. The measure of angle 3 is 46. So wherever angle 3 is, I'm going to put 46 degrees. And find the measure of angle 6. So whenever they're just asking us for an angle, we want to always try to just use our tricks if possible. So I like to always draw the zigzag because it's there to help us. So when we draw the zigzag, it's showing us all of the angles that are equal to each other. So all of the angles that are in that zigzag are equal to each other. And then the angles not in the zigzag are equal to each other. And if you look at this, 2 is an acute angle because it's smaller than a 90-degree angle. 3 is an acute angle, 6 is an acute angle, and 7 is acute angle. So all of the acute angles are in the zigzag and are equal to each other. Angle 8 is an obtuse angle. It's larger than 90 degrees. 5 is an obtuse angle, 4 is an obtuse angle, and 1 is an obtuse angle. So those are all going to be your angles that are equal, that are the obtuse angle degree measurement. Now we need to solve for 6. 6 is in the zigzag, so therefore angle 6 is also 46 degrees. And that's it. For the next question, what is the relationship between 3 and 6? So 3 and 6, we have our parallel lines, and 3 and 6 are in between them. Remember, we think of the parallel lines like a sandwich. So the parallel lines are the bread, and 3 and 6 are all the ingredients you want to put on your sandwich in between it. So those are your interior angles, and they're alternate sides of the transversal. So this is, the relationship is D, alternate interior angles. Okay? Here. So now we have to identify each of the missing angles. So the sum, so that means when you add up 3 plus 2, you get 136 degrees. We have to find the measure of angle 1, angle 4, and angle 5. So there's a couple of ways we can do this, okay? So we know that every triangle has 3 angles. And here's our triangle. And in the triangle, they equal 180 degrees. So if we know angle 2 plus 3, their sum is 136. In order to find angle 1, we can just do 180 minus 136. And we get 44 degrees. So now we know angle 1 is 44 degrees. And if you wanted to check your work, you could say 136 plus 44 is 180, which is the total amount of degrees in a triangle. We know that right here we have a straight line. So straight lines also equal 180 degrees. So angle 1 plus angle 5 should equal 180. So in order to solve for that, we can do 180 minus 44 gives us 136. So angle 5 is 136 degrees. Now we have to find one more angle, which is angle 4 right here. I want you guys to recognize and always look for lines. So if you look right here, this line is parallel to this line. Oops. They will go on forever and ever in each direction and never meet. So these are your parallel lines, and this is your transversal. So let's look at angle 1 and angle 4. They are both inside the parallel lines and across the transversal, and we know that they are going to be equal to one another because they're alternate interior angles. So if angle 1 is 44 degrees, angle 4 is 44 degrees. So we have found now angle 1, angle 4, and angle 5. So now we have to find the relationship between angle 1 and angle 5. We know lines that create a straight line are called supplementary angles. So these are supplementary angles because they equal 180 degrees. And then what is the relationship between angles 1, 2, and 3? 1, 2, and 3, yes, they create a triangle. But when they're talking about a relationship, you're talking about either alternate interior angles, alternate exterior angles, vertical angles, corresponding angles, complementary, supplementary. But the relationship between 1, 2, and 3 is that they are also supplementary angles because they add up to 180 degrees. So their relationship is also supplementary angles. Okay, and we are going to complete the fast finisher. So for this fast finisher, we are going to first see what we have to do. We have to find all the missing angles, okay? So in this picture, we have a lot going on. We have, we have this larger triangle. Oops. And then we have this larger triangle as well. And then we have this smaller triangle in here in the middle. Okay? Just so you could see all of that. But what we're going to focus on right now is the larger triangle. So in this larger triangle, we have 73 degrees to give to us. We have 83 degrees, and we have to solve for x. So, since we have to solve for x, we know that a triangle equals 180 degrees. So first we have to add up 73 plus 83, and we get 156. And now we take the total amount of a triangle, 180 minus 156, and we get 24. So right off the bat, we have solved for x is now 24. Now, in the smaller triangle here, SRU, we cannot solve for M or Z yet because in order to solve for a missing interior angle, you need to have at least 2 other angles in the triangle. We only have 1 other angle in this triangle. So we cannot solve for that. That's why when we had x, we were able to solve for it because we had 73 and we had 83. Okay? But we can't solve for anything in here using the triangle, anything inside the triangle, but you could solve for M looking at the angle outside of the triangle. Because remember, we have a straight line here. So a straight line equals 180 degrees. And we know an interior angle in a triangle next to it's an exterior angle that's extended out. That equals 180 degrees. So we could solve for M using 68. So 180 minus 68 will give us 112. So M is 112 degrees. Okay? Now we can solve for Z because we still can't solve for Y since there is no exterior angle out here from the line extended, and we don't have Z. So we still have two missing angles in that triangle, but now we have X in the smaller triangle, we have M in the smaller triangle, so we can solve for Z. So we need to add up 112 plus 24, and that will give us 136, and then 180 minus 136 will equal, that is 44 degrees. Okay. Next, and lastly, we can solve for Y, because now we have Z, we have 64. So like always, every time we have a triangle with two angles, you add them up. Add up 44 plus 64, and you get 108. Then you do 180 minus 108, and you get Y is 72 degrees. Okay, so that is the answers for all of that. We have Z is 44, M is 112, X is 24, and Y is 72. Okay, so part A is saying to name 3 angles that are congruent to 2. So to find all of the congruent angles, I'm going to draw the zigzag. And if you want to look at it this way, 2 is an acute angle. So if you just look for all of the acute angles, they will be equal to each other. So 2 goes to 3, which is an acute angle. 3 crosses to 6, which is an acute angle. And 6 crosses to 7, which is an acute angle. Everything in the zigzag. So every time you make a zigzag, you go across the transversal, and across the transversal. So the angles that are congruent to angle 2 are angle 3, angle 6, and angle 7. Okay? For each of your answers, justify why the reason the angles are congruent. So now we need to state why they are congruent. So that means what is their relationship with each other. So the relationship between angle 2 and angle 3 is, we can write into this. Oh, I'm going to write in text box. And so angle 3 is vertical to angle 2 because they are across from each other and meet in the middle. Across from each other directly and meet at the vertex. So the word vertex has the same beginning as vertical. Okay? Angle 2 and angle 6. Angle 2 and angle 6, they make that C. They are corresponding. If you look at the top 4 angles, 2 is in the top right. If you look at the bottom 4 angles, 6 is in the top right. So therefore, they're in the same location. So angle 6 and angle 2 are corresponding angles. And lastly, angle 2, angle 8, and angle 2 are, angle 2 and angle 7, sorry, 2 and 7. H and K are the sandwiches, those are your parallel lines, and 2 and 7 are outside of them. So when you have 2 angles outside and across the transversal, these are alternate exterior angles. Okay? So if they are asking you to just name which angles are congruent and find the angle measurements, use the zigzag trick. It will help you just easily solve for the angles. When they are asking you for actual vocabulary and to state their relationships, the zigzag will not work. Okay? You cannot state that they are all on the zigzag, so they are congruent to each other. You need to state they are vertical to each other. They are corresponding angles. They are supplementary angles. So this would be what you would need to write for part B, okay, in order to receive full credit for that answer. And lastly, part C, we have to name all pairs of vertical angles. So let's name them. We already know they have to be across from each other and meet at the vertex. So angle 2 and angle 3. Then we have 1 and 4 across from each other and meet at a vertex. Angle 1 and angle 4. Now we go to the bottom, 6 and 7 across from each other and meet in the middle. And then lastly, angle 5 and angle 8. Okay? So those are your vertical angles. Okay, so in this picture, we have seen this picture before actually. We've seen intersecting lines that create two pairs of vertical angles. So we know that this angle here, represented by 5x plus 2, is vertical to 3x plus 10 because they meet in the middle and they are equal to each other. So the issue now we're running into is we cannot solve for angles when they're given by an expression, because now we have a variable and we need to solve for that variable in order to determine and get the actual angle measurement. So when you are given expressions, you are going to have to create an equation first that will help you solve for x. Then when you solve for x, you are going to take that value that you just solved for and substitute it in to then solve for the actual angle measurement. So this is more multi-step. It's not just doing a subtraction of 180 anymore, because now you have to solve for x, then substitute in to solve for this angle. So there's only going to be two ways that you would ever set up the equation. You either will set them up equal to each other, or set them added up equal to 180, depending on their relationship. So that's why in part A, we ask you this every single time in every question, just to get you into the habit. So when you see these types of questions, you remember to ask yourself this question as well. So what do you know about the two angles that have expressions in their measurements in this picture? So they want to know, are they congruent or are they supplementary? So do they equal each other, or do they equal 180? Okay, so that's what you're asking yourself for this question. Sorry. Do they equal 180? So if you look at this, these are vertical angles. They're equal to each other. So therefore, these are congruent. So anytime that you circle the word congruent, you are going to set one expression equal up to the other expression. So the way you would set your equation is you take 5x plus 2 equals 3x plus 10. Because we know that this angle measurement will always be equal to this angle measurement. Now we just solve for x. You want to bring the smaller x to the larger using inverse operation. So you minus 3x minus 3x. You get 2x plus 2 equals 10. Subtract 2 on both sides, and you're left with 2x equals 8. Divide by 2, divide by 2, x equals 4. So we have just solved for just x. The angle measurement is not 4. Just the x is 4. So that's where part B comes in. Based on your answer for part A, set up an equation that would help you solve for x. And then now, we just did that. I want you guys to solve for this angle. So you'll take 3 x plus 10. I'm going to draw an arrow to where my x value is. Where that x is, I'm replacing with 4 that I just solved for. And now I have 3 times 4 plus 10, which is 12 plus 10, which is 22 degrees. If we know this is 22 degrees, we know that the other angle should be 22 degrees. But if you want to check your work, let's just make sure. Take 5x plus 2. You say, okay, I'm going to substitute that in. 5 times 4 plus 2. 20 plus 2 is 22 degrees. And we know they're equal to each other, so that is correct. Okay? And then if you had to solve for this angle here, you know that this angle plus this angle is 180 degrees. So you would just do, as usual, 180 minus 22. And to get the other angle, you would get 158. So if this is 158, you know this is 158 because they are vertical as well, and they are equal to each other. Okay. So for the next question, we are going to do this bottom one, okay? So we have to solve for all missing angles, but you always have to look for parallel lines with a transversal. You have a lot going on here, and there's a lot you could fill in right away. So if this line here, these are a bunch of intersecting lines at this vertex. If this angle is 45, we know that this angle 12 is 45 degrees as well because they are vertical, so they are equal to each other. Okay, so there we have that one. Then we know that these are parallel lines. Parallel lines cut by this transversal. So 45 and 1 are alternate interior angles. So if 45 is there, so is 1. To find now also 1 and 3 are vertical angles. So if 1 is 45, we can fill in 3 is 45. We know that angle 1 and angle 2 create a straight line. They are supplementary. So we can do 180 minus 45. And we get 135. And if 2 is 135, then we know that 4 is 135 because they are vertical to each other. So they are going to be equal. Now we have this triangle in the middle, 45, 55, and 5. So we could add up 45 plus 55, and we will get 100. Then we do 180. Oops, sorry. 180 minus 100 equals 80 degrees. So angle 5 is 80 degrees. Same thing over here. Let's focus down here on these groups of angles now. 55 is here. It's across from 9. It's vertical because these are intersecting lines. So 9 is 55 degrees. If we know that 5 and 7 create a straight line, they are supplementary. So we could do 180 minus 55 is 125. So if 7 is 125, we know 8 is 125. Then we have to solve for 6, 11, and 10. Angle 5, which is 80, and 11 are vertical angles. So if 5 is 80, 11 is 80. And last but not least, we have 6 and 10. The relationship between 10, 11, and 12 is they are supplementary. They create a straight line. So they equal 180 degrees. So we add up 50 plus 45. I'm sorry, this should be 80. My mistake. That's 80. This is 80, not 50. 80 plus 45 will give us 125. And now to solve for 10, we just do 180 minus 125, and we get 55. So 10 is 55 degrees. And therefore, 10 and 6 are vertical, so 6 is also 55 degrees. Okay, so we have another image here of intersecting lines cut by a transversal. So we have to start by determining how we will set up these equations. Are these two angles given by the expression either going to be vertical and equal to each other or supplementary? So we know that these are vertical angles. They're congruent. So therefore we will set them up equal to each other. So one expression equals to the other expression. So now we have to solve for x. X plus 25, I'm going to write it over here, equals 2x. Minus x on both sides. And I'm left with 25 equals x. And we are done. So now we solve for just the x value. So to solve for this angle measurement, we take the 2x expression. Wherever x is, I'm going to substitute that in for the x value. So 2 times 25 is 50 degrees. So if this is 50, we know that this should be 50 as well. But we could check our work just to make sure. We have x plus 25 is the other expression. Wherever x is, you're going to replace with 25. So 25 plus 25 equals 50. And we are done. Okay. Now we see this picture again, but now we need to determine, are they congruent, these angles given by the expressions, or are they supplementary? So in order to be congruent in this picture, they have to be equal to each other. And that means that they equal each other if they're vertical. In this case, we have x plus 16 is directly next to 3x. We see that they are on this line. Okay, so we have a straight line. So we know that they are going to add up to 180 degrees. So therefore, these are going to be supplementary to each other. So the second and only other way you will set up an equation when you have angles given by expressions is by adding up their expression. So you take one of them, x plus 16, add it up with the other one, which is 3x, and set them equal to 180 degrees. So those are the only two ways you will ever set up these equations when solving for a variable, when given angle measurements, okay? So either set them equal to each other if they're congruent, and the equal sign goes in the middle, one expression goes on one side, one on the other, or you see they're supplementary, you see that they will equal 180, and you add them up, okay? So when we have to solve this, we have x plus 3x and 16. So we're going to combine x plus 3x. We get 4x plus 16 equals 180. We're going to subtract 16 on both sides. And we're going to get 4x equals 164. And we have then to divide by 4 on both sides. And we get x is 41. So when we solve for x is 41, we are going to now take each expression, because now they're different. These are not equal to each other. So you have to solve for both of them. So you're going to take x plus 16. You're going to substitute 41 in for x. And you get 41 plus 16 is 57. So this is 57 degrees. Then we're going to take the other expression, 3x, and you're going to substitute that in for where the x value is. Oops, sorry, that's not the x value. This is the x value. So 3 times 41 is 123 degrees. And you could check your work by doing 123 plus 57. And if we solve correctly, it should equal 180 degrees, which it does. Perfect. So now if we know this angle is 123, we know angle 1 is 123 because those are equal and vertical to each other. And if we know if this is 57 degrees, we know 4 is 57 degrees, since those are vertical and equal to each other. Okay, so now we are going into pictures with parallel lines cut by a transversal. So again, I'm going to say this over and over and over. There's only 2 ways to ever set this up, so do not freak out when you see expressions. Just tell yourself, I'm either going to set them equal to each other if the angles given by the expressions are equal, or I'm going to add them up and set them equal to 180 if they are supplementary angles, if they are different. So with this picture, you can also use the zigzag trick. You could circle one expression that they give you, okay? You can make your zigzag, say across, you go to 1. You cross the zigzag, go to 5. Cross the zigzag, go to 2x plus 10. Remember, when they're in the zigzag, they are equal to each other. So if the 2 expressions you are circling are in that zigzag, then they are equal to each other. So in this case, they are both in the zigzag. So this makes them congruent. Okay, so that means you will set one expression, 4x minus 20 equals 2x plus 10. You just set them equal to each other. So from here, you just solve for x. Minus 2x, minus 2x. You're left with 2x minus 20 equals 10. Plus 20, plus 20. You have 2x equals 30. Divide by 2 on both sides. And x equals 15. Now, we take one of the expressions, 4x minus 20, and to solve for it, you substitute it in. 4 times 15 minus 20. The substitution part will always be the second part to solve for the missing angle. So 4 times 15 is 60, and we have 60 minus 20 is 40. So we know if this is 40, we know that when we solve for this one, it should be 40 as well. So let's check it. Let's take the other expression, 2x plus 10. Substitute it in for x, and you get 2 times 15 plus 10. 2 times 15 is 30, plus 10 is 40 degrees. So that's correct. And therefore, everything else in the zigzag is 40 degrees. Okay, so now we have the next question. So when they give you expressions that are not in the picture, write them directly in the picture so you can see and visualize where the angles that they're giving you are. So angle 1 is 2x plus 10. So I'm going to write that right next to angle 1. Angle 3 is 3x plus 10. I'm going to write that right where angle 3 is. Now, I have to figure out an equation in order to solve for x. So I'm going to draw my zigzag. I'm going to start with 1, cross to 4, cross to 5, cross to 8. In this picture, angle 1 is in the zigzag, and angle 3 is not in the zigzag. So when you have one in and one out, that means they are supplementary because they are not congruent to each other. So that means they are going to create a straight line, which you see here, and they equal 180 degrees. So you're going to take their expressions, 2x plus 10, add it up with the other one, 3x plus 10, and set them equal to 180. You have to now combine your like terms on the same side of the equal sign. So 2x plus 3x is 5x. Then we have a 10 and a 10 is plus 20 equals 180. Minus 20 on both sides now to get the variable alone. We're left with 5x equals 160. Divide by 5. Divide by 5. X equals 32. So now we have to go in and solve for each angle. So we write one expression, 2x plus 10. Take 2, replace the x with 32, add 10. So 2 times 32 is 64, plus 10 is 74. So this angle is 74 degrees. Now we take the other expression, 3x plus 10, replace the x with 32. We have 3 times 32 plus 10 gives me 96. 3 times 32 is 96 plus 10, which is 106. So this angle is 106 degrees. So therefore, all of the angles in the zigzag will be 74 degrees, and all of the angles not in the zigzag will be 106 degrees. And you can check your work by doing 74 plus 106, and you should have a sum of 180, which is correct because they are supplementary to each other. Okay? Now we're back to two intersecting lines with a transversal. No transversal, just two intersecting lines. So here we have 2x and x plus 80. So are they congruent or are they supplementary? These are congruent since they are vertical angles, so we set them equal to each other because we know their angles will be equal. So 2x equals x plus 80. In one step, we just get the x's together by subtracting x on both sides, and we have x equals 80. So to solve for each angle, we take the expression 2x, 2 times 80 is 160. And then we have the other expression just to check, x plus 80 is 80 plus 80, which is 160. So we have that this angle is 160 degrees, and this angle is 160 degrees. And we are done with that. And in order to solve for this angle and this angle, you could just do 180 minus 160, because these are supplementary. This angle is supplementary to this, and you get 20. So if this angle is 20 degrees, this angle will be 20 degrees as well, because they are vertical and they are equal. In this picture, we have two angles. Again, are they congruent or supplementary? This angle here, represented by x plus 17, is an acute angle, and this angle here is an obtuse angle. They are creating this straight line. Here's your straight line. So therefore, these are supplementary. Oh, I don't know what just happened there. These are supplementary. So we are going to add them up and set them equal to 180. So we take x plus 17 plus 2x minus 5 equals 180. You got to combine like terms. X plus 2x is 3x, and then a positive 17 and a negative 5 is a positive 12, which equals 180 degrees. We subtract 12 on both sides, and we're left with 3x equals 168. Divide by 3 on both sides, and we're left with x equals 56. To solve for the smaller angle, we take x plus 17. We substitute it in. 56 plus 17 is 73 degrees. And then we have 2x minus 5. We substitute 56 into there. 2 times 56 minus 5. We have 112 minus 5 is equal to 107. Which, this is 73. This is 107. And we could check our work by seeing if they add up to 180 degrees. Which they do. So that's correct. Okay, so for this next one, I want you guys to try this on your own and see if you could set it up correctly. And then if you set it up correctly, well, once you set it up, check that you did. Then pause it again, solve for x, and see if you could solve for all the missing angles, and then check all of your work. Just remember, you do want to put the angles in where they're given. So the measure of angle 1 is equal to 3x plus 27. So put that here, 3x plus 27. Then the measure of angle 5 is 2x plus 40. Put that there. Use your zigzag trick to help you identify how to set this up, okay? So try to set that up right now, then come back and see if you got the same equation. So you should have made your zigzag. 1 crosses to 4, crosses to 5, crosses to 8. They are both in the zigzag. They are both circled. So therefore they are equal to each other. So your equation should say 2x plus 40 equals 3x plus 27. Now pause the video, solve for x, and then check if you got x correct. Okay, so you had to start by subtracting 2x on both sides, and then you have 40 equals x plus 27. You minus 27 on both sides, and you're left with 13 equals x, and that would be your x value. Now pause the video and substitute it in to solve for each missing angle and see if you get that part correct. So when you substitute it in, you should have got that each of these angles are 66 degrees, which is correct because they are supposed to be equal to each other. So for this one also, we're going to start by determining if they are congruent or supplementary. So go ahead, create your zigzag, and check if you set up the equation correctly in 2 minutes. So here we are, created our zigzag. We circled x plus 15. I went across to 1, down across to 5, zigzag across to 8. There we have x plus 15 is in the zigzag, and 3x minus 35 is not in the zigzag. So therefore these are not equal to each other. So therefore they are supplementary. So we just add up their expressions, x plus 15 plus 3x minus 35, and set them equal to 180. And then we solve. So go ahead and solve this for x and substitute it in. Okay, so here, when you solve the equation, you should have added x and 3x, got 4x minus 20. You subtract 20 on both sides, and you'll have 4x equals 200. Then you divide by 4, and you get x equals 50. Then you substitute it into the first expression, x plus 15. You get 50 plus 15 is 65 degrees. And to get the other angle, you take 3x minus 35. You substitute 50 in for x. And you get 150 minus 35 equals 115. And to do your check, 115 plus 65 is 180. So here, we are asking to solve for the measure of angle 1. So again, in order to solve for any angles in this picture, you need to solve for x first, and then solve for angle 1. So go ahead, answer this exit flip, and then come back and check your work. Okay, so if you draw the zigzag, you would have circled 5x minus 28, cross it to 1, cross it to 3x plus 12, and cross it to 8. Both of these expressions are in the zigzag, so you should have set their equations equal to each other. You'd have to minus 3x on both sides, and you're left with 2x minus 28 equals 12. You have to add 28 on both sides, and you get 2x equals 40. Then you divide by 2, and you get x is 20. Now we need to solve for this angle, just to have one of the angles solve for that they've given us. So 5x minus 28 is 5 times 20 minus 28, which is 72 degrees. But they want us to solve for angle 1. So we have to see, here we have to solve for angle 1. So angle 1 is also in the zigzag. So if this is 72 degrees, so is angle 1. And so is 3x plus 12, and so is angle 8. And the fast finisher was to solve for the rest of the missing angles. So we had solved for all of the angles in the zigzag, and to solve for the angles not in the zigzag, you do 180 minus 72, and you get 108. So all of those other angles are 108 degrees. In this question, it's a fast finisher. We have to see, what do we know about the two angles that have expressions and their measurements. So we have a quilt is shown below, and all horizontal lines are parallel. Find x. So you should see that these are going to be your parallel lines. And here's a transversal line. So a transversal line is a line, and all lines equal 180 degrees. So therefore we know that these are going to be supplementary. These are not congruent to each other. One is acute, one is obtuse. So to solve for x, we have to do 4x minus 50 plus x equals 180. They just want us to solve for x. That's it. So when we now are combining the like terms, we have 5x minus 50 equals 180. You add 50 to both sides to get the variable 1, and you're left with 5x equals 130. Divide by 5 on both sides, and you're left with x equals, when you add 50 on both sides, this is 230. 230 divided by 5 is 46. So if we now wanted to solve for the angles, we could say 4x minus 50. We have to substitute it in. 4 times 46 minus 50 is 184 minus 50, which is 134. So this angle is 134 degrees. And this angle here, if you have an angle given by just the variable, then it is equal to whatever that x value is. So since it's given by just x, this angle is 46 degrees. So therefore, if we wanted to check, we could do 134 plus 46 is 180 degrees. Check. That's correct. So last but not least, we have this super fast finisher question. It seems intimidating, but I promise it is not, okay? So just make sure you read all instructions first. So line J is parallel to line K. So this line here is parallel to this line here. Line N is parallel to segment AB. So this line here is parallel to this line segment right here, AB. Line segment BC is perpendicular to line K. So that line here is perpendicular to this line. But we know BC is also perpendicular to this line because these lines are parallel to each other. So if they're perpendicular to K, this will also be perpendicular to J. And we know that perpendicular lines right off the bat, boys and girls, we should just start filling in where the lines intersect and they're perpendicular, they create right angles. So there's two right angles, and here 16 is a right angle, 18 is a right angle, 19 is a right angle, and 20 is a right angle. So right off the bat, you could fill in all of your right angles. So we have 16, which is 90 degrees, 18, which is 90 degrees, 19, 20, 21, and 22. Now we have to go back to our next part of the expression, our given, which gives us the expressions. Angle 1 is 2x plus 40, and I'm going to write that right in. And angle 2 is 3x minus 70. So we know that these two, we have to solve for x. They are creating a straight line. They are supplementary, so we're going to add them up. 2x plus 40 plus 3x minus 70 equals 180. We have to combine the like terms, so 2x plus 3x is 5x. 40 and 70 is minus 30 equals 180. Add 30 to both sides, and I get 5x equals 210. Divide by 5, and I get x equals 42. Now to solve for this angle, you have to take 2x plus 40. Substitute 40 in for x, and we get the angle measurement is going to be 124 degrees. So this right here is 124. And to solve for the other angle, we could substitute in 3 times 42 minus 70. And you get 56 degrees. So this is 56 degrees. Now we can say we're going to circle 1, crosses to 4, crosses to 5, crosses to 8. We have our parallel lines cut by a transversal. So angle 4 is 124, angle 5 is 124, and angle 8 is 124. Therefore, 2 is 56. It's across from 3. 3 is 56. 6 is 56 because they are across from each other, not in the zigzag. And 7 is 56. So now we just filled in all of those angles. But if you have to look at this sideways now, because we still have all of these angles here we need to figure out. So if you look at this sideways, this line is parallel to this line. And now J is the transversal. So you can also extend the zigzag if you wanted to. 1 goes to 4, but now go back across this transversal. That goes to 9, and then crosses to 12. So if 4 is 124, 9 is 124, and 12 is 124. And you could say the same thing here. 3 crosses to 2, which crosses to 11. So 11 is 56. And then that crosses to 10. So 10 is 56. Now, we have to determine what 13 and 14 are. But here, again, we have our parallel lines cut by a transversal. So now 9 and 12. If we circle this, crosses to 12, which will cross to 13. So 13 is also 124 degrees. 11 and 14 are across from each other. So 14 is 56 degrees. So right now, the only angle left to solve for is 15. And we know that 16 is 90. We have our other angle, 10 is 56. We know that 15, 16, and 10 are making a triangle. So if we add up 90 plus 56, we are going to get 146. 180 minus 146 gives us 34 degrees. So that is 15. And we just solved for everything. So if you want to fill in down here, you have angle 1 is 124, 2 is 56, 3 is 56, 4 is 124 degrees, 5 is 124 degrees. 6 is 56 degrees. 7 is 56 degrees. 8 is 124. 9 is 124. 10 is 56. 11 is 56. 12 is 124. 13 is 124. 14 is 56. 15 we said was right here, 34 degrees. And 17 is not in the picture, so it will stay blank. It's missing. And then the other ones were our 90-degree angles. And that is it for this lesson.